Hey everybody, thank you for your patience as I made this video. Instead of having our review session today, I just made a comprehensive list of things that you have in your binder, or you should have in your binder, that you need to be studying tonight and tomorrow night, and tomorrow as much as you possibly can. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly, and hopefully you can locate each of these for yourselves. So first, you need to make sure that you have read the front and back of this AP digital testing sheet. Where it has kind of FAQs. It tells you about the multiple choice questions on the front and then about the FRQs on the back. Then you need to definitely look at this packet. This is probably my favorite packet we've had this semester because it doesn't waste any time. It gets right to it. So make sure you look at question 1 reminders for the poetry essay, and then also on the back of that it has question 1 checklists. Same thing for each of the other FRQs, so the prose essay, and then finally the literary argument. Please, 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 if you read nothing else, make sure you read this, but surely you'll read everything. All right, next you need to look at your notes that we took together that were titled General Crap About the Exam. Mine are typed, yours are probably handwritten. I'm not sure if you got the bottom part of the notes, but I think you did get them. If not, I'll post these on the GroupMe. So, general crap about the exam. And along with that, you should know the general format of the exam and have a picture of that as well that's on these notes that gives you some information about how long each section is, how many questions, and how much it's weighted. Next, you need to study your literary analysis packet. It is this lime green packet. Specifically, look at the general instructions, like the front page, and I'm going to share this document with you that has a list of what to study, but you need to look at numbers 1, 3, 5, 4, 7, and 8 on the front page of this, and then on the next page it's called directive words used in essay questions, and it's got the definition of important words that you would need to know to understand what a prompt is asking, and specifically those words are analyze, compare, contrast, discuss, or examine, or evaluate, justify, prove, relate, trace. Those have different meanings and they're asking for different things, so make sure you look at their definitions on this packet I gave you a while back. On the next page of it, on the new and improved method of essay writing, you're going to look at numbers 3, 5, 6, 8, and the second half of number 9, and then number 11. And again, this is on the sheet that I'm going to post to GroupMe. You also, on the page that says present tense, you need to read this whole page, both sides of it. And then finally in this packet, quotations leading in, read both pages or both sides of this one because it's very important that you can make your quotes or your textual evidence flow smoothly in your FRQs. Okay, so after the lime green packet, you need to study this packet. It says the language of literary analysis, and it has these incredible comprehensive lists of verbs for literary analyses, verbs to use instead of exemplifies, verbs to use instead of says. It's got a whole bunch of adjectives to use for describing characters, for describing their mental qualities, their moral qualities, spiritual qualities, social qualities, so on and so forth. And then on the back side, it has the language of argument. It's got verbs and nouns that you might use in your FRQ3, the literary argument. Next, you need to make sure that you visit this sheet. It's the Pocket Pen Commandments crib sheet. It's all of it is not relevant, but numbers 1, 3, 4, 5, and 8 are important. So just read through those. Then we have the neon yellow packet that we never went over together, but I did give each of you. This whole packet is important. Honestly, just read from front to back and annotate it as if you were about to present it to the class. And then at the very end, it has some exercises where you can work on comma usage because it has 6 easy guidelines for comma use. So make sure you can do that easily because comma splices are incredibly distracting to your reader, even if you're making a great point. And no, they don't count off for that on the AP exam on the FRQs, but it is distracting for sure. And then I put on this list that you should look at any feedback that I've given you on written work and the FRQs in AP Classroom. So for example, shout out to Cade for leaving his junk everywhere, so I'm going to use his examples. This is what the day 1 test looked like. You came in here and I was a psychopath and we took the whole test. So it looks like this on the front, and then you get to, it has Thou Blind Man's Mark as the FRQ1 prompt, and then you wrote on pages like this, and I gave you feedback, okay? And that was really picky feedback, but it was good because it was at the beginning of the year. We had a long way to go. It'll also be kind of fun to see how far you've come as you read this. Also, there's a good word of the day test you can study. It's word of the day test number 6. Again, thank you, Cade. And it's got just a summary of the yellow wallpaper on it as you're incorporating some really good words of the day. Then you have your Pride and Prejudice test. It looks like this. If you don't have it back, then it is in your stack. If you want to see these stacks, I've made stacks of each of your work that's graded that you haven't received back. And you're welcome to come get those from the classroom tomorrow. So it looks like this on the front, and then on the back you wrote an essay and I gave you feedback, pretty constructive feedback, so make sure that you take time to read the feedback there. And then after you read any written feedback, and it's very likely that you have other important stuff that to which I've responded, but I've forgotten to list it here, just look through everything, pretty much look for my colorful pens. Then after that, you need to look at your purple packet, the AP Poetry Terms Quiz. It wasn't really a quiz, but that's what it's called because it came from Teachers Pay Teachers. If you're smart, you can also look up the key on Teachers Pay Teachers because all of your copies of this are currently in my classroom in your stacks to be returned. So you need to come get this or find and pay for it on Teachers Pay Teachers, just like I did. Also, I've graded your exams from this, and those have the same definitions on them. And then the annotated poem on the back and your response, I've also provided feedback to those. So please come by and get that so you can read that feedback because it'll help you with FRQ1. Getting toward the end here, you need to study your 80 common usage problems packet. As some of these you were great at, some of these you were not great at. So find the ones at least that trip you up and make sure you understand the difference. Then you need to look at your poetry notes, including the TP-Cast. What is that called? Acronym, the TP-Cast acronym. So make sure you remember what each of those stands for because that's a really handy tool for analysis for FRQ1 and for the multiple choice questions in the first half of the exam. So look at those notes. It also has I think it starts with questions to ask when analyzing poetry, something like that. It's handwritten. Then look at your poetry packet or the bracket packet. This is, again, Cade, thank you. It looks like this on the outside, and this doesn't really matter, but there are two really good pages inside it. The first one is the 50 common subjects in literature. So these are like motifs, or you could also plug these into the part of your thesis statement that asks for universal ideas. These are great words to know, or great motifs. And then another great sheet, I really love this one, is the 35 words to describe tone. I don't expect you to remember all 35, but it would be very helpful. Oh, check this out. Look at this pretty art. It would be really helpful if you could memorize at least 2 or 3 positive, 2 or 3 negative words for tone. Just some that stand out to me as I'm looking at this are cynical, apathetic, didactic, meant to teach, macabre, malicious, contemplative, condescending, sardonic, reflective is really good, optimistic, pessimistic, solemn, satiric or satirical. Those are some really good ones to have in your pocket. What a lame expression, but in your toolbox for test day. And then look back at some of your poems that we read because you are, it is likely that you'll see either these poems or some very similar to them in structure or theme or rhythm or rhyme scheme on the exam. So a couple of the ones that were the most important that I gave you are Mending Wall, Dover Beach, Dulce et Decorum Est, Testify, My Last Duchess, To His Coy Mistress, Funeral Blues, Sonnet 18, Sonnet 71, If We Must Die by Claude McKay, Chicago, Still I Rise, Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and If by Rudyard Kipling. So those notes are those poems are the most important, but obviously you can look through all of the very many poems we had to start with. And then you have notes on the hero's journey. We watched a TED Talk about the hero's journey right before we read The Catcher in the Rye, so that we could see how Holden fits and does not fit into the archetype of a literary hero. So visit those notes. And then I'm going to post a picture of this in GroupMe. So good luck deciphering it. This says writing workshop, and this is all the way back from, check that out, 1/13/2010, second block. This was my work. So read this. It's really super good. It's got an outline of the basic thesis. It has the outline of an essay, especially this is specifically for FRQ3. And then it's got characteristics of analysis versus summary. And then on the back of it, it's got really good pointers for when answering essay questions, ... And it's got some pointers, and then it's got writing do's and writing don'ts. So try to decipher that. Do your very best to read it, because all of that is really, really insightful. Okay, and then finally, look back through all of the annotations you made in all of your novels or on the short stories that we've read, especially if you were here for the flash fiction stories last week. Please make sure you look back over your memorized quotes, because you need textual evidence, especially and actually exclusively for FRQ3. And look at any notes that you took before, during, or after each work that we studied together in class. We had notes about Pride and Prejudice, and I know that we mentioned the Regency era and Victorian era and all these ideals of particular societies. Those things can only help you on the exam, because if you're going for the sophistication or the complexity point, you're going to need to do a little more than just the basics. You need to situate that text and your argument within the larger context. Okay, so then, and of all of the works that we read and of the ones that you memorized, just choose like 2 or 3. Don't try to remember everything about every work. Pick 2 or 3 that you know that you could write about, no matter what prompt you're given. For example, every time we do this in class, Luke always uses The Great Gatsby, and that is perfectly okay. If you know Gatsby forward and backward, that needs to be the one that you have decisively you're going to go with, no matter what the prompt says. Whatever those are for you, just know those quotes and know the characters. Please, and for the love, know how to punctuate the titles and how to spell the titles. Okay, we quote short works and we underline long ones. So each of the big works we read together is going to be italicized or underlined, hopefully italicized in Blue Book, and the yellow wallpaper plus the poems, their titles would be quoted. And then the last thing that you need to study, well, last thing on the list, are the following notes. I'm going to, again, attach this to something in GroupMe, or maybe I'll put it in the folder on the shared drive if you can still access that. But some of these bullets are huge, so I'm just going to breeze through them really quickly. So when you're writing about what characters do, you're summarizing. We're avoiding this, okay? Your reader knows what the passage says, whether it is the given passage or it is from the literature that you're pulling from your own reading. If you're writing about what characters do, it's summarizing. If you're writing about what authors do or speaker, then you are analyzing, and we are pushing for analysis. Okay, assume that your reader has read the text about which you are writing on all 3 FRQs, like I've said about 10 times now, just in this video. Please take that mega turbo huge packet and read through the Enduring Understandings from College Board. I mean, I can't give you anything more like the exam than that packet right there, because College Board creates this exam and this entire curriculum. So read the Enduring Understandings, please, even if it takes a while. Focus on parts of the provided text that you do understand. If you get a poem that sounds like it's straight out of the like a caveman's diary, you don't have to understand it all. But focus on the parts that you do understand, because I guarantee you can at least find some type of meaning or some type of device that you could write about. Just channel your inner Luke to be able to just, well, you know what I'm saying. All right, so also read the question, when you're doing MCQs, read the questions before the passage. Read the questions before the passage, the questions before the passage. This doesn't mean to read all the answer choices. Please don't. You don't have time for that. But read the questions and then read the given passage. Let's see. Answer the questions in your head after you've read the passage, answer each question in your head before you even look at the answer choices. Because likely, if you've read it carefully and you understood it, then the answer is going to be there. You already know it in your mind. It's just going to be worded some fancy way that College Board wrote it. So answer the question in your mind before you select the best choice. Okay. Moving on from that, sonnets, I have done a terrible job at teaching you sonnets in here. I'm sorry, but you are very likely to see one on the exam. Sonnets look like a box, and they are traditionally 14 lines. And if you're asked about rhyme scheme, iambic pentameter in a sonnet is probably the answer. Every sonnet creates a contrast. And we know that a contrast is just the juxtaposition between two different elements, two different characters, two different themes, two different feelings, two different settings, two different something. And they are opposing. So sonnets create a contrast. Find it. Find the contrast. Shakespearean contrast usually takes place in the final couplet. So the last two lines of a Shakespearean sonnet. In poetry, determine who the speaker is and what their conflict is by looking at the verbs. So if someone laments, or if someone contemplates, or if someone equivocates, then that's probably going to indicate what type of conflict they're having. Let's see. Guys from my church, I hope you're not counting my ums. Okay. Diction determines tone. Diction is word choice. Syntax is word order. Diction, it determines the tone. And when I say tone, you say attitude, correct? I hope. So, determine the tone by looking at the word choice. So, in each FRQ, you need to determine the theme of the passage or of the work as a whole. So it's easy to do this if you look at it and you ask yourself, is this a window, a mirror, or a door? A window allows you to see out and see another perspective. So there's what you have on the inside and there's what you see on the outside. A mirror is for reflection. Is this poet reflecting on a certain event in their life? Are they reflecting on their feelings about something? Are they reflecting on an event or something that happened to them or a memory? That would be a mirror. And then finally, the theme could have, the work could be a door. So it would introduce you to some new concept or new idea or new way of living, being, doing that you had never considered before. That would be a door. So window, mirror, door, as you're trying to determine the theme in each passage or for FRQ 3. All right, complexity. I should have pushed this way harder than I did this semester, but here it is. So complexity, it is guaranteed that there is more than one side of every story in each passage and poem that you'll see on the exam. You're not going to be given a completely myopic, one-sided passage. Okay, there's going to be complexity, which means there are going to be conflicting ideas or two sides of the same story, perhaps. So in order to identify and analyze complexity, you have to recognize both sides of the conflict. Okay, there's going to be a conflict, and where that conflict occurs, there's probably going to be a shift. So you need to remember these cheesy little things that find a shift, because in every passage, shift happens, and good authors always give a shift. Okay, so you're looking for the shift, which will show you the conflict, which leads you to writing about the complexity of any given work, situation, character, lens, paradigm, archetype, plot, whatever the prompt asks you about, or the MCQ passage or MCQs are asking you about. Okay, this is new. Okay, so you know the thesis statement that we've used over and over again. Hopefully you know this by heart, or you at least have something in your mind that you know by heart into which you can plug the specifics of whatever you're writing for the FRQs. But part of our thesis, at the end of it, it says, let me reference this, it says ultimately illustrating that, and then it asks you to put a universal idea. And then the next parenthesis says specific insight about that idea based on the literature. So where it says that, ultimately illustrating that, I don't want you to go straight to ultimately illustrating that, blah, blah, blah. I want you to say that although this is the case, this is the other side of the coin, okay? So you want to show that you understand complexity by using although, or that although. Okay, they ultimately illustrating that although blah, 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 blah. Okay, So here's an example. So in the controversial drama, A Doll's House, Henrik Ibsen evokes pathos in order to convey Nora's oppression and self-discovery, ultimately illustrating that although she breaks free of her figurative cage, this liberation comes at a high emotional, social, and psychological cost to herself and to her family. So you saw that although I can show both sides of this situation that Ibsen portrays in this drama. Finally, follow and stick to your line of reasoning, okay? Draw it back over and over and over and over again to your thesis and to the point that you are arguing, okay? Avoid summary, stick to analysis, and follow your line of reasoning. You're going to do great, and I look forward to reviewing with you in person tomorrow. Okay, love you, bye.